What's going on, people? Very good evening to you all, man. This is your boy, the Boxing Lowdown here. Delighted to be joined by the main man himself, Laurie from AFTV. We are here to discuss the Fury and White post-fight reaction, man. This is it. Wow.
Did he say fight?
Yeah, I said I'll put that in quotation marks, man, because it
What fight was that?
wasn't really much of a fight, man. But listen, I enjoyed it yesterday, on the Don Robbie stream, doing the watch along. That was cool. But let's just dive straight into it, man. Shout out to everybody, first of all, that's going to jump in the comments. Nothing but love every time. Can't wait to hear your opinions. Hit the like button on the way in. Share the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And also welcome to some of the new subscribers that have joined. We picked up quite a few yesterday. So shout out to you guys. And feel free to jump in, leave any comments, and let us know your thoughts on it. But big up Harvey, first of all. He's put here, evening, gents. Hope you're both good. Looking forward to this one. Asher said here, evening, gents. White got exposed for his long-standing limitations. And Francisco's put here, word up, brothers. Big up Jerry in the chat as well. We got a few people here waiting. Let's go straight into it, man. Laurie, I'll start. Sean Ryan, my brother in the building, he's put here, watching with my little girl Ellie, sorry. I'm excited for today's episode. Good to see you here, Sean, man. My bro, Sean, all the way from back here in Luton as well, man. Big him up. Now, let's talk about it, Laurie, man. I'll start. Like you said there, wasn't really much of a contest, man. Fury had his own way. Didn't really have to come out of second gear. Dominated White from the opening bell.
He got out of first gear.
Didn't come out of first gear. White, confusing tactics. Went southpaw at the beginning. Then thought that wasn't working. And he went to orthodox in the second round. Looked very unsteady for me. Very ungainly. Fury dominated White, really. Ended it with another uppercut. The kryptonite to Dillian White is the uppercut. All three of his knockout losses have come by an uppercut. And so was the case again on Saturday night. Your thoughts, man, because I know that you wanted to go off on this. So I'm going to open up the platform and let you talk, man.
Well, I've calmed down a little bit from last night. But I have to say that I was going to say performance, but lack thereof was pitiful from Dillian, man. I have to say that. And I'm speaking as a guy that is an admirer of Dillian, of what he's done with his career, where he's come from to where he is now. But let's be honest, man, he let himself down last night, man. Forget about the fans. They were let down. I felt sorry for a lot of them. I actually came across a couple of fight fans today in a Jamaican restaurant near where I live. They travelled up from Torquay and they were getting some food, and we were talking. One of them had a Gypsy King hat on, and even they were Gypsy King fans, and they were lamenting the lack of effort that Dillian put forth. Even they said, listen, man, Tyson was really good, but they were disappointed in Dillian. And I think that is something that will be echoed around the world. Anybody who watched that would have been feeling the same way as me and you did, Dal. The lack of performance from Dillian was actually quite staggering, if I'm being honest.
What happened?
Well, he looked shot to pieces, didn't he, Dillian, last night? He just didn't do anything, did he? I mean, listen. I know we had some jokes on the pre-fight show we did during the week when you tried to nail me down to a prediction, and I picked Dillian. But that, as you know, Daryl, that was because you picked Fury. Yeah. So I was playing devil's advocate. I didn't really think that Dillian had a chance, certainly to outbox Fury. We knew he wasn't going to outbox Fury, but what we all said was that he had a puncher's chance, and if he can turn it into a fight, then he would have a chance, a puncher's chance, even though it was remote. But he didn't even try to do that. I mean, you said it yourself. He came out in that first round in a southpaw stance. I've never, ever seen Dillian do that before, ever, right? And I've watched pretty much most of his fights. And so I was at a loss to explain that. He turned southpaw. He barely threw a punch in that first round. It was all fencing, wasn't it, doing that? It showed what a ridiculous tactic it was, because in the second round, he went back to orthodox and he never went southpaw again for the whole fight. And he just didn't let his hands go. He didn't look menacing, purposeful. He did try to really close down the distance. I don't think he landed a single headshot of note, did he? He threw a couple of jabs. I think the only punches he hit Fury with is when he was hitting Fury behind the back of the head, when the referee was trying to break them up. I've even heard some people suggesting that they feel the fight might have been a fix. And I'm not saying for 1 minute that I thought it was a fix, but that gives you an indication as to how poor Dillian was. I really was disappointed in his performance, man. I really, really, and I think he will have woken up this morning, and apart from the embarrassment of getting knocked out, he will be feeling embarrassed because he knows deep down that he didn't give of his best.
Here we got the CompuBox punch stats here, and I'm going to go on to your point about what you said about how Dillian Whyte was feeling, because I have seen I've seen something. He has come out and said something since that fight, but here are the CompuBox stats here.
Was it not sorry?
No, it wasn't actually. It was a bit of delusion actually. But these are the stats here. In the first round, Fury landed 7 punches, Whyte landed 5. Second round, Fury landed 15, Dillian Whyte landed 5. Third round, 16 for Fury, 4 for Whyte. 12 for Fury in round 4, 6 for Whyte. 14 for Fury in round 5, 7 for Whyte. In the last rounds, 12 rounds for Fury, 12 punches landed, 2 for Whyte in round 6. Total punches overall, I think Fury had 76 here, it's saying, and Dillian Whyte, I can't actually read the bottom here, but yeah, it just did not go it was a terrible performance from Dillian Whyte, I have to say. It
was dreadful.
And like Ash is saying here, let me stop sharing the screen. Ash is saying here, I'm not having that Fury was amazing. Most of the top 10 heavyweights would have slept him last night. I don't know about that, but what I would say is
but can I just say, I said that last night, and then I was accused of being a hater, remember? People were saying in the comments, I was saying that Fury didn't have to get out of first gear. So I'm still not really sure how Tyson Fury, how good he is yet. Because it's not as if he was pushed in any way. Dillian didn't do anything. Those punches.
Why is that? Why is that though? You got to give credit for Fury with that, for not allowing him to get started.
Credit because I've never seen Dillian like that before. So you got to say to yourself, then it must have been Tyson Fury that caused him to be so passive. But I don't know, man. I'm kind of leaning towards the theory that I think once Dillian got in there and realized the sheer enormity of the task in front of him, and when he couldn't land any punches after a couple of rounds, I think mentally he kind of gave up in there. And I know that sounds a dramatic thing to say, and some people might, I'm not accusing him of being a quitter, but I think Dillian mentally checked out after a couple of rounds. I honestly do, because I've never seen Dillian Whyte so passive in any of his fights. Have you, Daryl? Never.
No, and Harvey's saying it here as well. He's saying he really did look shot, Laurie. His gas tank was pretty much non-existent, and his punch resistance has really taken its toll after the knockouts and wars he's had in his career. Big Lewis said here, Fury kept the distance too well. Nothing Dillian could have done, in my opinion. Fury too big, too smart, too strong. That's what Big Lou, big up Big Lou in the building. My brother DS is here as well. He says here, he looked horrible as a southpaw, but ironically, it was probably his best round. Harvey saying here, Dillian said today it was a close fight and it is what it is. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Dillian came out today and that's what he said. He said he thought it was a close fight. He didn't think he was overwhelmed. And he basically, he just said it is what it is. So I don't know what that means.
That means then that Dillian must be more concussed than what we first thought. Because, you know what I mean? That's concussion bordering on delusion, because honestly, he didn't do anything of note. I can't remember Dillian, correct me if I'm wrong, landing a decent headshot all night. He threw some body shots. And even then, Fury, I remember he landed one, Fury laughed in his face. I mean, he landed some body shots. He threw some punches, man, but invariably they were like shots that Tyson Fury easily avoided. He hit the gloves a couple of times. Maybe those got counted as punches landed, but I really don't see. I think those stats that you quoted, Daryl, are actually being slightly generous towards Dillian Whyte, because I remember watching at the time and thinking he's doing nothing here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was an abject performance, I have to say. And I don't say that lightly because I'm a man that, you know what I mean? Previously, I've supported Dylan, as I've said on the pre-fight show during the week. We share a cultural heritage, myself and Dylan and you, people like that. So naturally, you want to support the guy. And, you know what I mean? I appreciate his story, where he's come from. He turned his life around, took up boxing, didn't have an extensive amateur career. You know what I mean? Made himself a world title challenger. But to come all this way and then to put in a performance like that last night, he just let himself down, bro.
Yeah. Francisco saying here, I felt for Laurie on the watch along. Though I didn't agree with all of his analysis, his points were valid, but he was dismissed by people that aren't very well versed in the sport of boxing. Just touch on that because I got a comment on the video today. I think Harvey said it about that as well. Like, that's natural, though, I suppose. I mean,
yeah, it is. Yeah.
What
you
did
have
you
to remember that we're sharing the sofa, Daryl, with good-meaning people, but they're not nuanced in boxing. So when I try to explain certain things to them, and I'm not trying to put myself on a pedestal, some of those things that I'm trying to explain may go over certain people's heads. I'm not calling any names, but it is what it is. But I expect that. I don't take it too serious. People shout you down and say, oh, but I don't really expect anything different because these are people that have not watched boxing for the same period of time as I have. They're not nuanced in the game. Certain things that I may notice, it probably goes over their heads. So I don't take it personal. But listen, anybody that follows boxing regularly will know that Dillian, he did look shot last night, man. The legs looked wobbly. I mean, he got caught with a right hand, I think, a round or so before he got knocked out. And it didn't even land properly. It was like half on the gloves, half on the side of the head, and his legs did a little dance. And I'm thinking, that surely that shouldn't be enough to wobble you. And I don't know. I think I said it at the time, and again, people laughed me out of court. But the finishing punch, Daryl, to me, did not look like the kind of punch that should knock Dillian out. What do you think, having seen it again since?
Maybe that could be down to his punch resistance, man.
Yeah, well, this is what I'm saying. I don't think his punch resistance is there anymore. I think we're looking at a shot fighter.
He looked gassed from what, round 3, 4? Mouth was open.
Mouth was open, gassed. Legs didn't look right. Didn't have his legs underneath him. Looked ungainly. Looked off balance. Looked way out of distance. He just didn't. It was an abject performance. It couldn't have gone any worse, to be honest with you. He looked here last night. He looked, you know what it reminded me of last night? He looked like somebody that, you know, when a fighter's on the up and up and they bring over a guy that's like an experienced guy that's done the rounds and, you know what I mean, he's no real threat, but he's got a name. And they just bring him over basically to showcase the up and comer. That's what Dillian looked like last night.
All right, let me get onto this comment here from Ash because this is what I was going to jump on as well. He says here, Dylan has always had a suspect chin, suspect gas tank, suspect technical skills, and now a suspect trainer. I want to get on the trainer situation because since he's been with Xavier Miller, he's had 2 defeats. He was with him for that Povetkin first fight, wasn't he? Yeah. Knocked out cold by Povetkin by the uppercut. Knocked out by AJ. That weren't with Xavier Miller, but he was knocked out by AJ with the uppercut. Now knocked out by Fury with the uppercut. What are they working on in training here? Are they working on just to get fit? I saw IA's comment in here and he was like, "What did you see all the weights in the change room for Fury-Whyte on that night?" And I did see them. And I'm just like, what are they working on? Just to get fit and to get muscular? Or like, are they working on errors in their game? Because that is a clear flaw of Dillian, the uppercut. Yes. And what has Xavier Miller been teaching him? Because I didn't see anything in that ring, nothing yesterday to suggest that they've worked on anything like that. You know, Fury being the taller man and rangy, the uppercut is definitely a punch that he'll be looking for, knowing that Fury-Whyte has been knocked out from it twice. And he caught with it again. Now, this leaves question marks for me over, you know, how good of a decision it was for Fury-Whyte to leave Mark Tibbs and go to Xavier Miller. Not disrespecting him, but at the moment, the record ain't looking very good.
Agreed. I couldn't agree more. I mean, as bad as Dillian looked, it was as bad a night, even worse for his trainer, Xavier Miller. I mean, I'd listened to Xavier Miller in the lead up to the Fury fight, and he gave an interview in which he was talking about they'd worked on several game plans, and now Dillian is looking great in training, and the numbers he's hitting in terms of some of the fitness and strength and conditioning work was as good as he'd ever done in his career. So they actually had me believing that Dillian was going to turn up in shape, ready to go. And the first kind of warning signs that I got that might not be the case is when I saw Dillian's on the scale on Friday, where he's there swapping hats and touching breasts. And
I didn't like that. I said that to someone. I was like,
yeah, man. I just thought, you come to listen, you waited all your professional career to fight for the title, and you're indulging in a love fest with Tyson Fury. And you don't blame Fury, because he's probably thinking, well, this guy's respecting me, you know what I mean? He should have adopted the mindset that, listen, man, it's all business. I'm not saying he should be pushing Fury and, you know what I mean, and throwing things at him and spitting at him and stuff like that. But you know what I'm saying, Gary? He never gave me that impression that he was really hungry.
yeah.
You know what I mean? If you contrast that version of Dillian Whyte with the Dillian Whyte we've seen before with the likes of Derek Chisora and Anthony Joshua, who was full on aggressive with those guys. You remember, like when they had the face-offs with him, man, he was offering them out. He was offering to go around Ian Lewison's yard, all them types of things, which I thought was over the top. But by contrast, with Tyson Fury, they were feeling each other up on the stage.
Could that just be age, maturity, a bit more maturity? The fact that, you know, they do know each other, they were friends.
Oh, he went too far for me. He didn't take on the persona of somebody that was really coming to win. And I think we should have known from when we saw that, because that is out of character for Dillian, isn't it? Let's be honest. That is out of character for the Dillian Whyte that we know. The Dillian Whyte that we've become accustomed to seeing is this alpha male, this warlord, this dog of war, you know what I mean? This street dude, you know what I mean? All of a sudden, he's all nice and touchy-feely and, you know what I mean?
Dancing.
Presenting each other with hats and all that type of stuff. And I remember thinking at the time, it was a little bit goofy, man. It was a bit corny. But I'm thinking, okay, when they get in the ring, man, Dillian is the kind of guy that will, you know what I mean, he'll come and bring it. But he didn't. So you have to wonder, did Dillian really believe that he was going to win this fight? That's what I found myself asking in the aftermath of that fight last night. Did Dillian really believe in himself?
Well, if you listen to him in the lead up to the fight, you know, he constantly referenced the sparring sessions. He constantly referenced the fact that, you know, they were supposed to fight beforehand for the diamond belt. Fury at the time went a different direction. So, you know, he's been talking about this 1,000 days, however long it's been, you know, paying all them sanctioning fees, having to go to court with the WBC, really going all in. And listen, I didn't pick him to win yesterday, but I just would have expected more. Big Lou is saying here, you need quick feet, superior boxing skills to compensate for the lack of height and reach. Dillian has never had that, and he's never had that. The result last night didn't surprise me, the result, but I just expected a bit more, Lou. That's all. I just expected a bit more from him.
Yeah, the result maybe, but come on, man. The manner of defeats, I would say, surprised pretty much.
Otto Wallen gave a better effort.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he's not a big, tall guy. He's got better footwork than Dillian. But in terms of ability, yeah, he's got
and
more.
Got to remember as well, this is the same Dillian that was laughing at Deontay Wilder when he got beaten in their second fight. Dillian was there laughing. Remember that? I can remember it. Holding his head and laughing at another man after he got knocked out. So for him to go in there and to give a performance like that, I thought that was really disappointing. And to hear him now making statements that, yeah, I think it was close, and I'm like, bro, what time are you on? Someone needs to talk to him, man. I think sometimes that is the problem with a lot of these guys. It's not just Dillian, by the way. A lot of these guys, they've got large entourages and they've got people that you think would be able to talk to them and tell them what's up, but clearly not. We saw the same thing when Teofimo lost, didn't it? Started making all these excuses. Then his dad started co-signing, yeah, this, that. You need somebody to be brutally honest and say, listen, man, you were not at your best last night. We need to go back to the gym and work out. Or we need to find out what happened, man, because you underperformed last night. And we need to get to the bottom of it. But instead of that, you just hear him making these delusional statements about it being close. I mean, what planet is Dillian on, bro? And that's what I'm saying. Maybe he's still concussed.
Big up IA here in the building. We got YK22. Big up Rilo. I see you in here as well. Let's switch it a little bit, because I don't want this to turn into a, you know, what happened with Dillian, because Fury at the end of the day was the winner. He put in a dominating performance over 6 rounds, won that by uppercut. You know, let's talk about the winner, Tyson Fury.
But you're right there. But I would say that any heavyweight in the top 15 would have beaten Dillian on that performance last night. Tyson Fury was clearly the superior man, and he deserves credit, because I know a lot of people are going to say, well, Laurie said that Dillian's never looked that bad. It probably had a lot to do with Tyson Fury. And yes, I do get that. But also it has to be said, man, that Tyson Fury did not even have to get out of first gear to beat Dillian last night. That was evident. So I don't know, man. I think Dillian might be shot, Darren. I think he might be shot. I mean, I've heard stories in the past of some of the sparring wars he has. We know that he's been in gruesome fights, and he's been knocked out by Povetkin. He's been knocked out by Joshua. He's been hurt several times in his career. He's had life and death fights with the likes of Derek Chisora, Joseph Parker, people like that. And I think maybe it caught up with him. And he's just not at that level anymore. I think, like I said, you put that version of Dillian Whyte in there with pretty much anyone in the top 15 heavyweights, he gets beaten comfortably.
Well, Ash is saying here it's going to be very hard to sell Dillian Whyte now, especially on pay-per-view. I don't see how he recovers from it.
I think Ash makes a very good point. I mean, listen, though, I said it to you today off camera. I could see all of those young up-and-coming guys. Wardley, forget about Joe Joyce. Joe Joyce would steamroller it. But even some of the young up-and-coming...
Tony Yoka.
Who?
Yoka, those guys.
Oh, no, that's absolute mismatch. You know what I mean? Those guys would absolutely clean Dillian's clock. I think Dillian's done at the top level.
Where does he go? Where does he go? Where does he go?
I think he should retire, but he won't, because we all know what boxers are like. So he will carry on, but he will basically become cannon fodder for some of the young and up-and-coming guys.
Interesting, man. I mean, this is the thing. This is what I say. You know, like yesterday, we had a little disagreement about it on the watch along, but the more I think about it now, I'm kind of swaying to your view. But I do want to say this. With, you know, we ask the fighters to take these challenges, man, to step in there, take a risk, and then they lose, and then we suddenly say, oh, he gets a bad beat, and oh, he needs to retire. But a lot of the greats,
he seems to have frozen up a bit there. Don't know if there's a problem with Daryl's Wi-Fi, but he seems to have frozen up. But I mean, if I could just say, people, that Dillian was so bad last night that it was actually quite disturbing for me to watch. I think your Wi-Fi was playing up a little bit. You was breaking up there. But yeah, as I was saying, it was actually quite disturbing, because what I was seeing in front of me was a guy that had no game plan. He had no energy. He had no stamina. He was blowing out his ass after 2 rounds, Darryl. His cognitive function seemed a bit off. You said yourself, the legs weren't there. He looked off balance. And I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, wow, man, you know what I mean? This is supposed to be a world title fight. But it looks like Dillian had been brought over. He looks like a guy that had been brought over to showcase another man's talents, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
It was actually quite difficult to watch. And that was supposed to be a world title fight. The amount of people that I've spoken to today, I've been out today doing various things. Not one person had any kind words to say about Dillian. And that's a shame, because the man, up until yesterday, had proven himself to be a warrior. Whatever you want to say about his skill set, the one thing that people always said is that Dillian Whyte, man, he brings it. He's not the greatest in terms of talent, natural talent, whatever, boxing skills, but he brings it. Last night, he didn't do that. He didn't bring it. He was passive. You know what I mean? And he looked awful. He really, really did. I mean, listen, I'm trying hard not to make it personal and not to try and be too scathing of him. But I'm just being honest. I mean, my girlfriend watched a fight and she said to me, Laurie, I think that was a fix. You know what I mean? That's how, and that was something that I've heard a few people online say as well, that they thought that Dillian threw it, that he spewed it, that he got in there, realized he couldn't win and just looked for the floor. Even the punch that put him away, Darryl. I mean, I'm not being funny, mate, but I've seen Dillian hit harder than that. Yeah? And that punch landed at the side of his face. It was a good shot, don't get me wrong. Fair play to Tyson Fury. He saw the opening there. He went for the uppercut. It landed. But come on now, man. The way Dillian went sprawling across that ring. Again, I'm not so sure a couple of years ago if that would have been the case. A couple of years ago, he might have got staggered by that. You know what I mean? Got himself together and come firing back. The old Dillian would have come firing back. Nah, man, it was just a very, very disappointing performance. Very disappointing.
What about this comment from Jerry here? He says here, I think Whyte will fight a couple of more times, maybe someone like Ortiz or Ruiz. I mean, Luis Ortiz didn't look, he won, but he was very shaky up until that victory against Charles Martin. Is that the sort of level? I mean, like a Charles Martin for Dillian Whyte maybe, or someone like that? Where does he go?
Very good.
White Chisora 3, I'm seeing from Harvey.
It probably will be something like that, because I don't think Dillian's going to.
That's not going to sell, is it? I mean, come on, man. White Chisora. I mean, yeah, they're both characters in that, but that's an undercard fight. That would never be a headline fight now.
No. I mean, Dillian. I mean, I know he was complaining about the purse splits, but in real terms, he was very well compensated for last night. I think that pretty much that's his last big payday, because there's not much to market him off going from last night, is there?
No.
Because he wasn't competitive in any of the rounds. He didn't win one round.
No.
I don't know when he's coming out with this, it was close. If he's saying that to people in his close circle and they're like co-signing that and saying, yeah, you know what, Dillian? Yeah, there weren't much in it. They're doing a disservice to Dillian Whyte. There should be somebody there, his brother, saying to him, look, bro, I know you're in there and sometimes it can look a bit different, but bro, that wasn't your best night, man. You were well beat. Just keeping it real. And then those are the types of guys you need amongst you, because how anybody could. Dillian never came close to winning a round. The first round, there wasn't a lot of action. He turned southpaw, but then even then he wasn't throwing any punches. And then he abandoned that tactic after one round. So that shows you that they didn't believe in that tactic. They abandoned it after a round.
It was a weird.
It was weird.
It was weird.
Yeah. And some people were suggesting that in itself told them that Dillian knew that he had no chance of winning that fight when he did that. I'm not going to go quite that far, but a lot of people are suggesting that the mere fact that he did that in the first round and didn't throw any punches was him throwing the towel in. Now, I'm not going to go as far as to say he threw the towel in, but I do think that mentally he checked out after a couple of rounds. I think he, deep down, he thought he was up against it. He wasn't likely to win. And so the performance was reflected in that. There was no belief there. None.
Let's talk about, let's switch it, man. Steph is saying here he was pretty poor last night, but don't you think Fury is a great? Let's talk about Fury, man. Where does he go from here? Do you believe that he will retire? Where does he, if he is to retire, do you rank him, like, where do you put him in terms of, you know, the heavyweight landscape? You know, I'm seeing all sorts of wild takes online, but a realistic opinion, you know, a sensible opinion as to where you think Fury is in terms of his career, Best
I think
heavyweight
right
this
now
generation
he's
ever.
#1 heavyweight in the world, based on the fact that he holds the majority of the belts. And you look at his resume, the wins over Klitschko, the wins over Wilder, and things like that. I'm still, if I'm being honest though, I'm hesitating to call him an all-time great yet, because I don't think that this particular era has produced a lot of great heavyweights, if I'm being honest. We've had some entertaining fights.
Is that his fault? Is that he's got to beat
his fault? No.
he's got to beat who's put in front of him?
But I think if he beats the winner of AJ and Usyk, you'd have to put him down as a modern day great for definite. But I still don't know, man, because he doesn't seem overly keen to get in there with Usyk, and I'm a little bit perplexed as to why not. I would have thought that he'd want to clean up. So I can't really label him as great yet, but I definitely would say at this moment in time, he's the best heavyweight out there, based on, like I said, the amount of titles he has and the resume that he has. But I still need to see him in a couple more fights before I can label him great, man. I don't think he's achieved greatness yet. But you know what? In this day and age, he probably will go down as a great. Because
I think when people like match Fury up against you know, some of the fighters from the past, they look at his awkward style, the fact that he is 6'9", the fact that he can switch hit, the fact that he does have deceptive power, the fact that he is good with his legs. Those sort of attributes there against the heavyweights from the previous generation that were a lot smaller, you'd naturally think that he would give them a lot of problems. So when they look at it like that, like obviously Fury will say what he says. You know, Floyd used to call himself TBE. Fury calls himself the best of all time and all that stuff. But I think that, to be fair to Fury, if you put him in any era, I'm not saying he's the all-time great, but if you put him in any era, I think he'd be able to hold himself due to the fact of his size and his ability. I think he would be able to hold himself. And listen, man, I thought he was going to lose to Wilder. I thought he was going to get knocked out by Wilder. He didn't. He did enough to win that first fight for me. The second fight and the third fight was convincing. I didn't think he was going to beat Klitschko. I thought that was he weren't going to win that at all. He went over there and he beat him in his backyard. So he's done things that I didn't believe he could do. And you know, he is the champ. He is the champ right now. So listen, I wanted Dillian to win, but I have to give Fury his flowers, man.
Yeah, no doubt.
I don't know. Maybe Usyk would be the only one I feel that would have like a real chance of beating him, if anyone. But he's a lot smaller than him. Fury knows how to use his size and strength and his reach and everything else. That's a tough fight for Usyk, man, as well.
It is, yeah. And let's not totally write off AJ, because, you know, AJ has a chance against Usyk next time around. He certainly has a puncher's chance, although you would favour Usyk to beat him. But Usyk will present Fury with problems that certainly the likes of Fury-Whyte wasn't able to present. And I think he would be very competitive, although you would have to make Fury the favourite given the size differentials, you know what I mean? Listen, I'm not going to put Fury up there with the likes of Lennox Lewis and all that lot yet, because I don't think he's earned that yet. But listen, man, he's on the right track. He seems to be dominating so far, given the fighters he's fought in this era. But I still need to see more before I can put him up there. You see, the word great these days, man, is a very overused term. You know what I mean? Fury's clearly good. He's clearly very good. But there's a difference between being very good and being great. And it also has to be said that, you know what I mean, White and Deontay Wilder were not the most skilled of heavyweights, bro. That's just the truth. You know what I mean? We saw that last night. Dillian's skill set was appalling last night. You know what I mean? It genuinely was.
Big up Bon Kui in the building here. He said here, I got Fury whooping Usyk. He said he's got him whooping him. Asher said here, even the likes of David Stewart and Briggs, Lennox's less famous wins, he'd sleep White. That's a fact. No, they would sleep White. David Stewart and Shannon Briggs. I have to say they will. But yeah. I just think that
we always knew Dillian White's limitations. We've even laughed about it on this show. We talked about even when he beat who's the guy that he beat from Australia? Oh shit! What's the guy's name?
Who? Lewis?
No, Fury-Whyte.
Oh, Lucas Brown.
Lucas Brown, and then he went and kicked the turnbuckle and fell over.
Nearly fell over there. Yeah.
Yeah, he's not been blessed with the greatest of athleticism in terms of, you know, I mean, agility.
This is why I said, would the inactivity hurt him? Because he'd been out of the ring for what, up to a year, hadn't fought previously that much before then, so he's not the natural type boxer where he's going to be able to be out of the ring for a certain amount of time and jump back in and be fluid again. It's going to take him a while to adjust. And like, I thought that might be a problem, but you didn't think so at the time. Do you think that?
I don't tend to regard Dillian as what I call a touch fighter, in that he relies on timing and reflexes and skills. He's pretty much a brawler. But last night he didn't even do that. He was kind of stuck in this no man's land where he was doing not much of anything. You know?
Yeah.
And that was what was disappointing, because we all said, everybody said it. I'm not trying to be, you know, I mean, this great oracle of boxing, you know, I mean, that I know more than everybody else. Everyone said it, that Dillian will not outbox Tyson Fury. He's got to bring it to him and turn it into a fight and try and land the overhand right and the left hook. Yeah, everybody knew what he needed to do. But not only did he not do it, he didn't even look like he was trying to do it. And that's the problem that I have with his performance last night. You know what I mean?
Think that
rabbit stuck in headlights? Did he freeze? I don't think so. I don't know.
Do you think that Tyson Fury will go through with this retirement? You know,
no,
you don't.
Absolutely
is
not.
Is he waiting for the AJ Usyk winner? What? I need to see him give up the belt first. If he is to really, I need to see him relinquish that, and not just be you know, a champion emeritus or whatever you call it. I need to see him give it up and say, I'm done. Here you go. That's it. I don't think he's officially relinquished that belt yet. But until I see him do that, and, you know, there's none of this champion emeritus, whatever you want to call it, then I might slightly say, okay, maybe he is going to retire for now. But even then, you can still be lured back into the ring. Yep. If he holds onto the belt, do you know what I mean? And then all this retirement talk, I need to see action, really. But we'll see. What are your thoughts? Do you think he will retire? Do you think that he may be, you know, what's your thoughts on it now, considering that performance, everything
games.
else?
Yeah. Playing games. Listen, why would you retire off the back of last night when you've had one of your maybe his easiest win in years, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Because even when he fought Otto Wallin and people like that, man, Otto Wallin gave him a far harder fight than Dillian did.
Maybe easier since Tom Schwartz.
Yeah. He literally won that at a canter. That's how easy it was last night. He barely got hit. Yeah, and if he did hit, he got hit a couple of times behind the head. He got hit with a few jabs, but nothing. He got hit a few times to the body. Nothing of significance. Probably made the easiest 30 million he's ever going to make.
Punch Mullet here saying you picked Dillian Whyte. Punch Mullet saying here, Laurie.
I picked Dillian Whyte, but I think we all know that I did so, Daryl, because you picked Fury, so I was just playing devil's advocate. But anyway, whether I picked him or not, I'm just, you know what I mean, like breaking down his performance after the fight. He was awful, though.
So it was more. So to you, then, it was more Whyte being awful than Fury being good.
Well, this is what I'm turning over in my mind. I'm trying to strike the right balance because, listen, Tyson Fury looked imperious last night. And as I've said previously, I've never seen Dillian look so bad. So you do have to give Tyson Fury credit. Because I've seen Dillian look bad. I mean, I remember when he fought Marius Wack, who incidentally was another very tall opponent. Dillian struggled in that fight, man. Barely got that fight across the line, if you remember. Looked awful. So yeah, he has had a couple of those performances in him, but I've never seen him look quite that bad as he did last night. Now, could it have been the length of Tyson Fury, the skill set? I'm sure that had a lot to do with it. But even so, Dillian did not give forth the type of effort that was ever going to win that fight. So it's impossible to really gauge just how good Tyson Fury was last night, because he was not in there with somebody that was trying to win, in my opinion.
Yeah. I just see, you know, going back to Fury, the fact that he fought at Wembley, 94,000 people. There's not much more of a high. I mean, I reference Kell Brook in this because, you know, when he beat Khan, you know, that was it for him. That there's not much of a high you're going to get after that. The only real high I can see for Fury after this is obviously becoming undisputed, but how much does he really care about that right now? Or beating AJ at Wembley? That would be the only thing. If AJ was
I
to
think
lose,
if Tyson Fury knew he could get AJ in the ring next, I reckon he wouldn't be announcing his retirement like this. I don't think he's particularly keen on fighting Usyk, but I do think he would fight AJ because he knows how big a fight that would be, big domestic fight. Maybe Tyson Fury feels that if he fights Usyk and beats him, he won't get the credit he deserves because people will say, yeah, but you're twice the size of him. He's only a blown-up cruiserweight. You're supposed to beat him. Maybe Fury's looking at it like that because I have heard interviews in the past where he suggested that, where he's actually said things like, what do I get from beating a blown-up cruiserweight? In fact, described him the other day as a blown-up middleweight on steroids or some stuff like that, he said. So that shows you how lightly what he thinks about Alexander Usyk. So I think if it's AJ, he would definitely take that fight on. But I'm not so sure about Usyk. The trouble is, we don't know if AJ's going to beat Usyk. In fact, given from their previous fight, you would have to make Usyk a firm favourite, wouldn't you, in the rematch?
Most definitely. Bon Kui is saying here, Laurie, who are your favourite, slightly switching topics here. He says here, Laurie, who are your top 3 favourite fighters right now at the moment, and who have you got winning out of Haney and Kambosos? We'll start off with the first question.
Haney Kambosos. Now, that is a tough fight, actually, because I think Haney is the better fighter. But I think that Haney going to Australia and fighting a live wire like Kambosos in his own country is fraught with danger. And I could see that Haney would probably be the moral winner. But if he doesn't knock Kambosos out, which I'm not sure if he could do that, he's going to have to put a serious beating on him or drop him a couple of times to get a decision in Australia. That is the problem I have with that fight. With regards to favourite fighters, boy, that's I don't know. I'd have to think about that, man. There's so many fighters that I admire. It's almost unfair of me to say top 3. I mean, one clearly I could say would be Terence Crawford, but then there's loads of guys, man, that I like watching. And yes, Canelo is a guy that I like watching as well. Some people might be surprised to hear me say that, as much stick as I've given him. But yeah, man, there's so many fighters that I think to condense it into just 3 would be doing myself a disservice because I genuinely like watching so many fighters. I'm a real fight fan, and I think to condense it to 3 is probably a little hard for me to say off the top of my head.
Okay, back to Fury and White here.
I do think, and I'm going to reiterate it, that Terence Crawford is pound for pound at the moment my best fighter in the world.
All right, back to Fury and White here. Just let's wrap it up really with what we think. You know, we've said how our thoughts on the performance of White. We've spoken about Fury and how easy it was for him on the night. Just your final thoughts as to, you know, where you think that, you know, both of these two go. Fury, you don't think that he will retire, you're saying.
No.
So he'll wait for AJ and Usyk is what you're believing. To see
he
what
might
happens.
even do this little ridiculous.
You don't think he might do them exhibitions? You don't think he might do WWE? He has got other routes. He has got other routes outside of boxing. Yeah. He can go back into WWE. He can do that film. He can be in movies and stuff. I could see Fury doing that. So that's why when he does talk about retiring, like, yeah, I take everything he says with a pinch of salt, literally everything. But, you know, when you look at it like that, he does have options outside of the ring. So is it that hard to contemplate that he may retire?
I don't think he'll retire, Daryl. I don't think so. I think he may well do a couple of the exhibitions. I mean, if he could pick up easy money against Ngannou, you almost couldn't fault him for that. I mean, let's be honest, man. Ngannou's got no chance against Fury. None. Absolutely zero. I don't know what Ngannou's trying to prove. But if he thinks that he's just going to walk into boxing and beat somebody like Tyson Fury, he's on cloud cuckoo land.
Well, it's going to be cross rules, isn't it, or whatever it is.
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to work that out. But if it's in a boxing type thing, he's got no chance against Fury. None. Zero. Like I said, I don't see him retiring. I think he's got his eye on that on the AJ Usyk. I think he's hoping that AJ wins. They can get the big domestic showdown on. I don't think he's got many fights left in his career, but I don't think he's going to retire. As for Dillian Whyte, I think that looking at Dillian last night, I think he's pretty much should retire, but I don't think he will. The future's quite bleak for Dillian, to be honest with you, because I don't see him fighting at the top level anymore. And I could see him becoming a cannon fodder journeyman type fighter for the young guys who are just going to go in there and beat him up and knock him out.
Some people are going to say, they're going to look at this and say, you know, one terrible performance against the best heavyweight in the world, and suddenly he's completely shot. You can't pit him against it. Was it that bad where you can't put him in there with anyone in the top 10, 15, even though it was against the best heavyweight in the world right now? Are we giving Dillian too much criticism, or do we not believe he can? You don't think that? Because look, there are other guys out there that have had bad performances, man. You know, but Dillian Whyte, it was
probably a world title fight, though, that was worse than that in terms of the challenge. I'm struggling.
Can't think of the top of my head.
He was fighting some of the guys that he was blowing out. They were actually giving him decent fights up until the knockout. Dillian wasn't competitive against Tyson Fury by any way, shape, or form. He was not competitive. He may think he was because he was upright until the 6th round, but he hadn't even come close to winning a round. Not even close. He was not letting his hands go. And on top of that, his punch resistance was very frail. He had no balance. He looked ungainly. He had no tactics. You wonder what they were doing in Portugal for those 6 months. What were they doing? There was no game plan. There was no tactics. There was no instruction from the corner. And if there was, Dillian wasn't carrying them out. It was just an utter abject performance. I've got to be honest, though. He was poor, man. The amount of people I've seen today, in person and online, who have expressed their extreme disappointment in Dillian's performance. And I'm very worried by the fact that he's now come out with his statement today. He should really be apologizing and saying, look, hold my hands up. I don't know what went wrong. You know what I mean? We'll try and do better next time. Instead of that, he's coming out with delusional statements like, yeah, it was close. And, come on, man.
I agree with what Ash is saying here. Ash is saying here there hasn't been a worse heavyweight title fight since AJ and Martin. That's true. Yeah. That was the last one.
The last one that was on the scale with that.
It was that bad, man.
It was that bad.
Eddie Hearn promotes Dillian Whyte, but they're only on a fight-by-fight contract. It's not no long-term deal. We've seen Eddie Hearn in the past, you know, with fighters that are no use to him anymore, with Kell Brook. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's happy to kind of give them away. And then I see Eddie Hearn on Tyson Fury's FaceTime. To be fair, it was Fury probably mocking him by FaceTiming him, but just not a good look, you know, for Dillian, man. Eddie won't hesitate to not. If Eddie don't feel like Dillian Whyte is marketable anymore, then he won't use him. You know, it's as simple as that.
Well, apparently Eddie wasn't even at the fight last night.
No.
What does that tell you?
Could that not have been anything to do with Frank Warren and Queensberry and all of that, though?
You would have thought he would have wanted to be there as somebody that promotes Dillian, surely.
Yeah.
That tells you how much belief he has in Dillian, doesn't it?
Maybe he might need a change. Maybe he might need to go to America, see what's over there, and maybe go over there.
For that fight as well. Remember? He lost the purse bid. How much did he really believe in Dillian in this fight?
What about if he switches it up, goes to America? He tried that earlier on in his career just to see what was around. Maybe he might have to have a fresh start, you know? It's a bit late. Well, he's not that late. He's 33, 34. Heavyweights do tend to go in a bit later, but he's took a lot of punishment.
An old 33, though, girl.
Yeah, he is. He's taken
some beatings in there. He's been knocked out badly a couple of times. 3 times now. Been knocked out badly. And I just think that his cognitive functions are not quite there. His balance is awful. Last night, like I said, he got touched with a couple of punches that were not that hard, and his legs were splaying in there. Nah, man, it's not looking good for him. And I think if he comes up against anybody, even remotely in the top 10, top 15, they're all going to beat him. I can't think of a top heavyweight out there, right? But imagine Dillian in with some of the guys, some of the young guys like Yoka, Hergovic, people like that. They would, it doesn't bear thinking about, doesn't it? Let's be honest, based on that performance we saw last night. And it wasn't just that performance last night. Though. We go back a couple of fights before that, he got absolutely smoked by Povetkin, who's in his 40s. Yes, he won the rematch, but let's not forget, you were brutally knocked out by Alexander Povetkin.
Yeah.
So, so you can't really consider him in that conversation with the likes of Tony Yoka, Hergovic, Joe Joyce, people like that, Daniel Dubois. They would all smoke Dillian. I'm just being honest, bro. Based on what I've seen last night, those guys would smoke him.
Even Wallin's not looking like a good fight right now, man. Even someone like Wallin, like they were supposed to fight.
I mean, he turned down the Wallin fight. I could see why he would have turned that down. I would go as far as to say even some of your rudimentary young heavyweights coming up, like your David Adelaide you saw last night, would probably.
Nah, come on, man. What you don't think Dillian would lose to him? You think it's that bad,
bro? You have to understand how bad Dillian was last night. The guy's shot. He's shot, though. And once you're shot, you're shot. That's it. You know what I mean? And like I said, I don't like to say those things about Dillian because, like I said, I like the guy and I appreciate what he's done with his career, what he's done with his life. But I'm just being brutally honest. Boxing is a sport. It lays bare your it lays bare your limitations. And last night, Dillian was cruelly exposed.
Ash is saying here, Eddie won't be working with Dillian again. Don't you worry. Yeah, it's just Eddie's quite ruthless with that, man. If you don't feel like you're bringing any value to him anymore, then he's happy to kick you to the curb, man. We've seen that in the past. Do you know what I mean?
I think Dillian should retire. But then, like I said, it's maybe a bit. It's easy for people like me to say he should retire because, he's the one that's built up his reputation. And like you said earlier, Daryl, he's going to be saying, oh, one bad night, you want me to retire. But I'm not just looking at that performance. I'm looking at his conditioning or lack thereof. I'm looking at the fact that he has no gas tank anymore, right? He has no legs. He can't take a punch. The punch resistance is clearly shot. And then the basic other skills he's not displaying. And boxing's a type of sport, though, you get hurt, especially in heavyweight boxing. He's regressed that much that I honestly think that now you worked your way up, you got your title shot, you were well compensated, maybe not as well compensated as he would have liked, but come on now, 8 million for, what he did last night is good money. If you invest that, I mean, he can stay in the game. I know, for example, he trains, manages fighters and stuff like that. But listen, me saying all that is redundant because we know he's not going to retire. Maybe if he has another fight, he may look good. Hey, I might be wrong, but I don't see him as a top-class heavyweight anymore. Do you?
Not on that performance yesterday. A couple of questions here. Isfan is right with this comment here, what he says about Dillian. Probably the richest boxer who was never a world champion. Good on him. Fair play to him. Absolutely.
A couple of special stars, isn't he?
Ash is saying here, Adelaide, the disrespect. You thinking that Adelaide? I'm like, bro, man.
Yeah, maybe that.
You're going all the way down there. You're going down there, man.
Yeah, maybe that's a bit disrespectful. But Adelaide's a young, hungry heavyweight, Daryl. It's exactly the type of opponent that Dillian doesn't want in his career right now. And I'm telling you now, man, if that fight goes 3 or 4 rounds, Adelaide will beat him. Based on what I've seen. Adelaide's a big, strong, hungry heavyweight that if he was to fight someone like Dillian, that would be like a world title fight for him. Would Dillian have that same motivation to fight Adelaide that Adelaide would have to fight him? That's how you got to look at it.
IB saying here, Laurie, I love Dillian, and as do you. Do you buy the failed drug test? Where's the consistency with all due respect?
Well, you know what? He does make a good point there, man. There was that thing with the Oscar Rivas situation. It was handled very poorly. Where is the B sample? The only reason why I never really fully went in on that is because we never really saw the B sample. So technically, he's not failed a proper drugs test, does he?
Well, he's failed one before that.
The A sample, but we need it to be ratified with a B sample, which we never saw.
So he did get a ban before that. He did
No,
fail before
I think before that he had that issue with the over the counter supplement.
but we can't. Yeah, but like you said in the past, you know, if you fail, you fail. You know.
Yeah, but it wasn't nandrolone or steroids or anything like that. It was a stimulant that he bought over the counter, which just prior to him having taken it, I think they said it was legal to use it. It was an over the counter. Okay, but listen, it wasn't in the same ballpark as some of the other stuff. Put it that way. So I gave him the benefit of the doubt for that one. The stuff with the Oscar Rivas is far more cynical. I'm far more skeptical about that one. But then, like I said, we didn't see the B sample, so who knows what happened there, Dan? We don't know.
I think it was very dodgy, if you ask
me.
It was
very dodgy. It was very dodgy. I will admit that for sure.
It was very dodgy there. Ian Hamilton says here, Eddie kept talking
about Tyson Fury's history, don't we? Nandrolone.
Ian Hamilton says here, Eddie kept talking about not being invited. I mean, did he even want an invitation? Unless Frank banned him from the event, then he should have been there for Dillian. He's saying that Eddie should have been there for him.
Yeah.
Harvey saying here, Laurie is about to say that Campbell Hatton beats Fury-Whyte. It's getting to that level, man. But nah, just all jokes aside.
Campbell Hatton might beat his dad if his dad follows through with this ridiculous thing to come back to the ring. Then Campbell Hatton might take his dad on.
Yeah.
But yeah, man.
Well, listen, man, we're gonna wrap it up for today anyway, man. You know, we've done an hour, great hour. Our feedback on the fight itself. Don't forget, you can catch us on the podcast every Thursday. Shout out to everybody in the comments, man. Some great comments here today. Don't forget to hit the like button on the way out, please. Share the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And listen, lovely
people. I just want to say, look, I'm sorry if it seems as if I'm kicking Dillian when he's down. I wanted Dillian to win, right? Even though deep down I thought he was up against it. What I'm lamenting in this show and what I've done since is to say that I was so disappointed with Dillian's performance in so many aspects, on so many levels, that I think that deep down, for the first time in Dillian's career, I saw a man who went in there last night that did not believe in himself. And that when you see that, you think maybe it's time for Dillian to get out the game. I genuinely saw that last night. A guy, he was hesitant. He was not. He was not purposeful, and he just did not give me that impression that he'd come there to win last night. Am I being unfair, Darryl?
No,
I just didn't get that impression from him. The body language was all wrong, even before the fight. But I gave him the benefit of the doubt with, you know, some of the stuff that was going on, touching up man's breasts on the scales and swapping hats and hugging each other and talking about respect. All that was very unlike Dillian, wasn't it? Totally unlike. This is a man.
I told Fred people that I was concerned about that. I didn't like that.
Yeah,
I didn't like that.
Yeah. Right. This is a man that him and Derek Chisora had to be separated by about 5 bouncers when they went to kill each other after they did a gloves are off. You know what I mean? A few years back. Fast forward till now, we're seeing Dillian swapping hats. You know what I mean? Touching up Tyson Fury on the scales and expressing his love and admiration for him. Yeah, and then that kind of transpired into the ring also, where he just didn't show any aggression or any real purpose. It could have been, and I'm trying to give Dillian a little bit of benefit of that. It could have been just one of those awful nights, couldn't it, Darryl? But then, like I said, you look at some of the performance previously, and you're thinking to yourself, man, I think we've seen the best of Dillian already, bro.
Time will tell, see what happens. I'm sure. I'm looking forward to seeing his interview with IFL or whoever, man. I'm looking forward to actually seeing what he really has to say. Not no quotes. I want to actually see his body language and what he really thought, man. Maybe he's got time to have a look at the fight. But yeah. Listen, great show.
I'm disturbed at this latest development that you're saying that he thought it was. Did he actually say that then? He thought.
No, he did say that. He did say that, yeah, on the BBC. I'm not sure where it was, but I saw a tweet and that quote, it said it was from the BBC.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow.
But listen, man, we're going to wrap it up today anyway, man. We'll be back on Thursday, for the podcast. Tune into that. Got a lot to talk about. There's the small fight taking place in New York between Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano, and also probably even the bigger fight for me, Shakur Stevenson and Oscar Valdez taking place next weekend as well. So a lot to look forward to next weekend, man. Listen, guys, thank you for tuning in. Hit the like button on the way out. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll catch you on the podcast next week, guys. Peace.